Hey, everybody. Welcome back to KF&JF podcast. Here today, we got a special guest on our show, and I tell you, I am so thankful and blessed to have him today. You know, I sometimes when life you get an opportunity to meet somebody and they change your life in so many different ways. And this is a guy and that I love for all that he does in making those changes in my life. So I want to be able to introduce him, but first let me just go ahead on and kick it to that host of ours, Razak.
Hi, everybody. My name is Razak. I'm the CEO and founder of United Minority Business Ventures. My company assists in the creation and maintenance of other people's businesses by forming opportunities and to communicate and collaborate using networking tools. It's 2024, and it's about social media marketing, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. So are you buying your domain, or are you paying or somebody else's domain? So in the creation of your business, I help with the building of your marketing profile, the creation of your marketing strategy, building your financial profile for your business, branding your product or your merchandise, and managing your website by selecting posts that create subscriptions, comments, and likes. We also help generate comments that create a dialogue of conversation directed towards your page and help navigate through the thousands of companies that are asking for money for when you have free services that do the exact same thing. And I would just like to say, Mr. Aubrey, it's a pleasure to meet you and to be here, a part of this podcast today with you.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
well, you know, one of the things that I'm going to say is, Mr. Aubrey, you know, I'm going to say this. Can you start by introducing yourself?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you both for allowing me to be a part of the program for tonight. And my name is Aubrey Avery Jr., and I have spent over 35 plus years in retail throughout the United States and also doing consulting in many areas of Europe and really with a big focus on retail, store operations, marketing, real estate development, and people development. I've worked with some of the greatest minds in retail, some of the greatest CEOs, both from the beginning throughout my entire career. And I've had an opportunity to really work in many facets of retail, both from upscale luxury retailers like Ralph Lauren, to being a member of the original team that helped start Old Navy, as well as off-price and specialty stores. So overall, I've had an opportunity to be one of the blessed people to be in an arena that has covered pretty much most of the major facets of traditional retail. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to some Q&A and sharing thoughts and perspectives. So thanks much.
Oh, we really appreciate you being here, sir. I tell you, can you just off the top here, can you share a little bit about what motivated you to get into the field that you're currently in?
Well, I think one of the biggest motivations has been my ability to recognize that one of my personal greatest joys in life is helping people. And I found that retail was an environment that I could really expand on something that was personal to me overall. My parents both were very hard workers, and we grew up in the South. And so my first job as a young kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, was working in a local community store they sold candies and sodas and basic things for small communities. And I went in to ask the gentleman for a job, and even though kid labor wasn't a big issue back in that time period, but one of the things that fascinated me was being able to work, make money, and help people. And I always enjoyed talking with people and hearing their stories. So that was my beginning in a little town called Trenton, Tennessee, that got my first start in retail from the beginning.
Wow. Wow. I tell you, that's got to be a story that everybody wish they had. I know I was in the country, so that country living, man, is one of those things. Can you let us know a little bit about, like, let our listeners know a little bit about what you're currently working on?
Well, right now, I'm part of three other gentlemen that we're co-founders for an organization called the Precedent Group. And it is a board selection company. And what we do is we work with Fortune 500 companies to focus on attaining more space for African American male and females on their boards. When you really think about retail as a whole, you really look at it from a standpoint, if you want to make change and impact change, the biggest place to impact change is at the highest level of the organization. So that starts with the board of directors. And since the boards are responsible for hiring the CEOs, firing the CEOs, and supporting the shareholders, it's really important that if you want to get people to represent diversity of their internal customers and the external customers, it's important to really get people of all cultures to be on a board of directors.
Wow. I just can't tell you how important that is. And even in all of our businesses that are out there, just to be aware of these things that are out there to help us better understand what's actually going on. And I can't thank you enough. What are some of the trends that are out there, particular interested to you?
Well, I think right now, one of the biggest trends is being able to understand how technology, in particular AI, is going to impact the retail industry. If you guys look back when we were going through the whole COVID process, if you were a retailer that did not have solid technology expansions and you were only brick and mortar, most of those stores and retailers suffered pretty dramatically. And so for right now, technology, both being brick and mortar, also you have to have another phase that supports the growth of your company, like online business. And you have to have things like, personal pickup and personal returns. And the companies that did that exceptionally well really excelled in the retail industry during those difficult times. So I think technology is huge, probably one of the single biggest opportunities for retailers to adapt to the next 5 to 10 years ahead.
And you're absolutely right with that, because I find that, everywhere we go, technology is just steady moving and moving. And it doesn't matter. Even with my mom, she has problems with the TV, she's got an iPhone, all these different things. And she's 81 years old, but she's trying to catch up and still move with the technology. So it's just kind of, it's kind of one of those things that we all need to be prepared for, that the future is coming, and it's coming in all kinds of ways. What's a particular, unique fact about you that most people don't know?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, I'm an introvert, so that's a unique factor.
Introvert.
I love, as a kid growing up, I was always a very reserved and quiet kid. I wasn't out playing with everybody else. Probably the things I focus on, I always love to read and I love to write. I write poetry, so that's something a lot of people don't know. And I also, as a young kid, sung in choirs at church and directed choirs. And I can't read music, but I know how to do the other components of it. And something that probably people don't know about me is myself and a group of 100 plus singers, we cut an album in 1977 in Michigan. And then in my church choir, we won the Michigan's Best Choir Contest for a couple of years in a row. So those are some personal things that are important to me from my past history.
What's
Wow,
the name of
that
that
is
album? What's the name of that album that you guys cut?
It was a gospel album, and it was called "Humble Yourself."
Okay,
Yeah,
Humble
okay,
so
Yourself.
it
yeah,
was
we're going to check that out.
quite an experience, to say the
That's
least.
Yes,
that's one of the things
yes,
that we all should take into account. Is humbling yourself is a skill everyone should have. You know, we
Yes.
should
mhm.
all be thinking of that. Can you recall a moment or event, that set you on this path that you're currently on?
Well, to be honest with you, I think the thing that drew me to being so in love with working is my parents, in particular, my mom, um, picked cotton when I was 8 years old in Tennessee. And so at 8 years old, I had a chance to pick cotton for the first time. And I saw how hard she worked to help support our family along with my dad, that was a foundation for me to say that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I assist my parents when I got older. And I remember that you would get paid $3 a day to pick 100 pounds of cotton. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen cotton sacks. They're about 7 feet long, and cotton is very light. And I remember picking 296 pounds, and, and they wouldn't pay me for my total $3. And my mom would pick 300 pounds of cotton a day just to make sure that our family had all of the basic essentials that we needed. So it was, I think that gave me the foundation, and I never looked back.
That's kind of
Hard
the
working.
the historical part of what we need to bring forward to today's
Mhm.
youth, and helping them understand the sacrifices that were made for them to get into places that they are getting into now, whether it's school, whether it's just going into the
Mhm.
store, going into the mall, or having a lot of the things that they just take for granted, and knowing the story of that sacrifice and that hard work to put forth. Not only you did, but your parents did, and that's just something that we all should be thankful for. And my question would be, what challenges or setbacks in hindsight played a crucial role in your personal development?
In terms of the challenges, after I relocated, I grew up in Tennessee and lived in Alabama for several years. I moved to Michigan when I was 16 years old. And one of the biggest challenges in life, period, prior to digging deep into retail, really was around the fact that I lived in a segregated South, right? And so I had never been to school with anybody that looked different than myself. So it was my first opportunity to go into integrated schools. And that was a huge challenge for me. Just the cultural difference between being in the South and being in the North, and then adjusting to people who did look like me was very difficult. But what I did find out is that people were more open, more supportive, more willing to help you, to guide you through processes. And one of the people I want to really be extremely thankful for in my actual retail career was a gentleman by the name of Judd Napper. He was of Dutch origin. His family was from the Netherlands, and he gave me my first retail job, a 16-year-old kid, working in his store. And basically, I started off cleaning bathrooms and unloading trucks and learning how to do seamstress type things. And one day they got extremely busy on the floor, and they called me out to help sell. And I became a salesperson. And later I became an assistant manager, and then I became a manager. So that was my foundation. So when I look back at being a part of the team to help start Old Navy, working for Ralph Lauren and working for TJX Corporation, he is my hero of retail because he took a chance on me and he taught me all of the basic fundamentals of retail from the beginning.
That is kind of where I have seen my growth in some
Hmm.
extent,
Hmm.
where there was always somebody that pulled me along when I didn't even know what I was doing. It's just, I was meat packer, and the guy showed me how to do the meat packing. But it's
Yes.
just the way that, you got to take advantage of all of those things and opportunity that are given to you. And that's another thing that we find that a lot of our youth are they have all these opportunities and advantages, but sometimes they just walk away from them, or they don't recognize it as an advantage, you know. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you balance work and your personal interests and passion? How do you balance all that stuff?
That's a great question and a difficult question because first of all, I love what I have done in my years. Retired about 8 years ago officially, but never retired. Um, when you do something that you love, it never feels like work, right? So I devote as much time to helping major retailers from a consulting standpoint, both domestically and internationally. I also find time to ensure that I reach back to all of the individuals that I've had an opportunity to work with and learn from, and ensure that they are still growing and still developing. And so to me, that's my downtime. But my official thing that brings me most much joy when I'm not working is traveling. I have traveled to 49 of the 50 states, United States. I have one more to go, is Alaska. And I've traveled to 8 to 9 countries in Europe and around the world. And I've flown a couple million miles. And that's my downtime. And when I'm not working, I teach a grief share session for people who've lost loved ones through death. And I've been doing that for 5 years. And I also consult for a couple of companies in Los Angeles. So for some young entrepreneurs who started off, I've been doing that for about 5 years. And I support uh, several other smaller organizations as well.
You know, that
That's
is
a
the
lot.
blessing. That is the blessing we
A lot.
all know we need. Okay,
Yes.
Jacques, you got any
Yeah,
Absolutely.
questions you like to ask them?
yeah, we're gonna need some websites on some of those places that they're helping out.
Sure, sure.
But but I was as far as your challenges and triumphs, what was one of the most challenging situations you faced, and how did you navigate through it?
Okay, great question. Great question. Well, I can't even say that it was actually one, it was many, but it was a replication of the initial challenges. Being Black, being honest, in corporate America, as you guys probably know, and just in the world, is very difficult. People second guess you. They don't understand how you got there. A lot of people say, oh, you got there through affirmative action. Well, I never did anything through affirmative action. The biggest challenge is being accepted for your skill set, for your talent, for your ability, and people feeling that you're just there as a token. And especially in the early years, I spent well over 40 years in retail officially, and it was difficult just being. I have a different school of thought today than I did then, but it's difficult being in a company, a huge company with a large population, and you are either one or two of the only people that influence change in a director's level, in the whole corporation. I mean, so when you sit in those corporate boardrooms or with the executive staff, it's only two people that look like you in a company of 100,000 people, and that was very
Right.
difficult. You always have to prove yourself extra, and whatever you do, you've got to do it with the ultimate of skills and integrity in order to make it through and be accepted. That's very difficult. Very difficult.
I I think
And
you're absolutely right there.
right,
Sure, go ahead.
and with those challenges that you just said that you was facing, was a moment of triumph or success that stands out as a significant accomplishment that you made, going through those challenges?
Absolutely. I can recall one thing well, I can recall several things, but particularly this one thing, and that is I remember I was, and I won't name the company just for privacy perspectives, okay? But it is a major Fortune 500 company. And I remember I was up for a promotion to a vice president's position. And, there were 10 people that interviewed for the job. And it got down to the last two people, myself and one other individual who did not look like me from a cultural perspective. But I didn't get the job. And the other gentleman did. And based on my previous skill sets, I knew I was, really well qualified for the job. But obviously, I'm not the major final decision maker. So what happened is I didn't get the job. I was very angry. I kind of went home and sulked for a couple of days, and then I got back and I said, "I'm better than this. I trust God in the process and everything that I've done throughout my life, even when I didn't understand." And sometimes you have to take a back seat to what you want as God is preparing you for it. So what happened is a year later, almost to the month, I got a call from my boss, who was one of the original people I worked for and reported to. And he said, "Hey, Aubrey, I got a call from the CEO's office. There's a new job they're going to create, and they need two people for the job. And I'd like for you to go interview with the CEO." And I got the job. And it was a job that had never been created. It gave me, along with my business partner, gave me global US responsibility, and it opened my ability and access to people at levels I would have never met in my previous career or the job that I interviewed for that I didn't get. So it just shows me if you have hope and you have faith, even in business, and you stand behind what you're good at, and you work hard and you really try to focus on being the best you can to support people on their journey as well as your own individual journey.
That is definitely true.
It's very powerful, very powerful. So, I know you have mentioned the guy earlier who first gave you your break into
Right.
retail, but
Hmm.
so since then, a lot of like you probably ran across a lot of people since then. So, who are the individuals that may now be like role models, and have they influenced your values and your mind state in real estate right now in the profession that you're in?
Absolutely. Well, my real estate focus was a little different than traditional real estate. I actually did not have a background in real estate. My background was solely in stores, operations, P&Ls, anything to do with the operational side of a business. But mine was real estate strategy. So myself and my business partner, what we did, and I'll share this and then I'll tell you who my mentors are now as a result of that, is our goal was to develop strategies to build stores in non-traditional markets throughout the U.S. For Gap Inc. That was the company that we were focusing on the real estate strategy. So we identified ways to create another $500 to $600 million in incremental sales, which were sales over and above the company's previous sales over a 5-year period. So some of the mentors that I had an opportunity to work with is Mickey Drexler, who was the former CEO of Gap Inc. for over 20 years. He was the guy that made Gap famous. He was the guy that founded Old Navy. Also, one of my great mentors was a guy by the name of Bill Parker, who was the first African American um, executive at Dayton Hudson's corporations back in the day. Dayton's Hudson's owned Targets, and they owned Mervyn's, and they owned several other major department stores in that time because they were people who invested in me. And one of the other people that I really owe a lot of support to is Magic Johnson. And even though he's in the sports industry, when we started to develop strategies to build stores in non-traditional markets, he was the first person that we went to and said, "Hey, how do we get into urban markets and how do we become effective?" And he invited myself and Alan, my business partner, who was Jewish, to his office in Beverly Hills, and we sat down and talked, and he coached us through a lot of things that our company was moving into that we had never done before. And as a result of that, we were able to help him in some processes. So I have a lot of people I'm so grateful for. People like Susan Taylor, the former editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine, that I built a great relationship with, and people like Jeff Friday, who's the president of the American Black Film Festival. And even though you say, well, that's not really traditional retail, but magazines, in a sense, is a part of retail. And just getting an opportunity to meet some of the greatest minds in the business has been phenomenal for me.
Yes,
I
yes,
can't tell you
that's impressive. You
how
you mean
powerful
that?
that song, because I've been trying to get a hold
Yeah,
of Magic Johnson forever.
yeah, you had a
It's
lineup right there, huh?
it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
So,
it's,
so
it's
uh, out of all that, are there specific daily habits or routines that you believe contribute to your productivity and well-being right now?
In terms of habits, I have to say my biggest habit is just learning. I love to learn. I One of the things that I pray for, and especially last year, probably more than ever before, is, and I may have mentioned this to you guys when we spoke some weeks ago, is I pray for wisdom. And I always say, if you can pray for wisdom and you can get knowledge and you can get understanding, then it just opens up the doors for everything you want to do. I think that's a phenomenal thing. And so for me, um, if you were to call me, I'm on East Coast time now. I generally don't shut down until midnight in terms of learning, whether it's conference calls, Zoom calls. I do a lot of research. A lot of my friends call me professor because I research things, and I always say if somebody can't find it, I'll find it, or I'll know somebody that will help me find it. But no, to be honest with you, when you have a passion of helping people and guiding them, especially through this business, it's easy. It's easy. I never am overwhelmed. 99% of the time, I just trust God and go. That's what I do.
that's how we that's that should be a life lesson.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm
Life
gonna
lessons.
ask you, one of your life lessons. Is there a particular life lessons you learned, you know, that you would like to talk about? What's one of the life lessons is that you've learned over the successful life that you've had?
I think probably the biggest life lesson I've learned that I stick to is elevating. Like I'm more concerned about elevating your dreams and your goals and your visions. And the reason I feel that way is because somebody invested in me. A lot of people invested in me. And so I want to give back. And I feel like each of us talents and skills that are different and unique from the other person. But my biggest um, passion will always be helping people in any way possible. Like here's a great example. There was a young guy that worked for me in Atlanta, and I gave him his first store manager's job, right? And he was really qualified. And sometimes you got to look deeper into a person more than they look deeper into themselves. And he goes, Arby, I really appreciate you believing in me and investing in me, but I'm not sure if I can do this job. But I saw something in him, right? And so as a result of that, I promoted him to his first store manager's job. And I ran into him some years ago in Miami. And what I found out is that, and we had stayed in touch over the years, he became the third highest ranking person in Target's corporation. There was the CEO, the CFO, and he was head of two areas. He was the chief HR person for the whole corporation, and he was the president of sourcing for them. So I've worked with a lot of talented people. I mean, I could rattle off, which I'm not going to do because we don't have time, just names of people that I invested in. And, like one of the guys that's a part of our board of directors company, he's been president of three major companies, and he worked for me, and we worked together, we learned together, and I pushed him, he pushed me, and that's my joy is seeing people evolve at every level.
Well, one of the things that you're investing in us too, by you being here today and you taking the time out of your your day to come onto the podcast and give us this knowledge and give us this, eye opening about what we can achieve in life if we just stay focused in a lot of the areas that you've talked about. I'd like to ask you about any mistakes you've made, any challenges or big failures that you
Mhm.
found through your life that, what, that was not the right way to go, or you've learned from that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. In terms of failures, I have a different take on failures. Um, I think that failures are a roadmap to success. And I say that because when you fail at achieving a goal or a responsibility, you learn how many ways to do it right and to do it wrong. And in that failure, it teaches you how to maneuver and or shift in another direction. So I think one of the things that I failed at from my personal goal is I did some consulting for a company in London called Business in the Community, along with another friend of mine, and we were asked to come over and speak to some major corporations about how businesses operate in the U.S. versus in the U.K. And it was a successful meeting. We got a chance to meet Prince Charles and members of Parliament and that whole process. And when we wrapped up the sessions, I was telling my colleague Bill, who is an African American gentleman from Harlem. I said, Bill, we should move here. I mean, that's how nice people were to treat us. And I was gun ho, and I got caught up in so many other things at my current role that I allowed so much time to slip by, and I didn't do it, and I have regretted that for pretty much the rest of my life. And the first time I was in London was in 2001, and I was back several years after that. And my friend Bill did go the next year, and he's still there, and he works for one of the deputy prime ministers of the UK. So to me, that was something that I had such a passion about, and I didn't do it. And I think it would have given me even a broader perspective to further my career into other areas that I didn't have experience that I had major interests in.
Wow, that's something to have to constantly, remind yourself of, that you could have
Yes.
things could have been a little bit different. How do you stay informed in your work, and what do you use as far as publications, and what you most
Mhm.
value in keeping you informed?
I'm going to reverse that for a second. Let me ask you guys a question. In
Uh-oh.
today's, yeah, so I know this is unusual. You're interviewing me, but I'm going to throw it back at you guys, which I'm sure was totally unexpected. But when you think about research, I mean, where do you guys go for research? Each of you, from a retail perspective, you guys both are business owners. And the reason I'm asking you that is because I want to find out where you guys go, and I'm going to share with you where I go, and just to look at it from a generational perspective as well. So can you
YouTube
just sign in?
technology, of course.
Okay.
Google technology.
Okay.
That's where
Okay.
it's at, man.
Zach, how about you?
You ask the question, and hopefully you can get the answer through there, because they got a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of these interviews that we have done, I have been put on the awareness of that. You could just put in your search bar of with the questions that you need to have,
Hmm.
and then once I found that out, it's like the YouTube University. There's different little things that you can punch in, like
Hmm.
how to build a business, what is a DBA, and these are the
Right.
questions that I feel that my you know customers or people that I'm going to work with, other businesses, are going to have. So I try to structure my business by doing that before they even have it. So if you have a question that you just really didn't think to
Right.
type in there, like, how do I do this, or where do I go to for this, and then they'll give you a whole list of different companies. Now, how do you select what company to go to is a whole no entire thing. That depends on, what
Right.
you're able to do, what your product is, what I mean, how much, what are your finances there, what I mean, what state you're in, where, how the business is located, all these different things become into play of how you want to use it. But
Mhm.
for me, I just punched it in, and then a couple of people that we have ran into, such as yourself, Mr. Aubrey, I just listened to what you're saying, and how you went about doing your getting to where you got to on your level, like different aspects of trying to maneuver in a workplace where the you're the minority in a sense. Let's just say what it is.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
the minority. You're I should say you're in there, but there's thousands of other people around you who are going to be put on the forefront, and then you're kind
Right.
of like on the back burner. So
Right.
you're not only working yourself up through the community and saying, hey, you know what, I want to start my own business. I don't want to keep working for people all my life and do
Hmm.
all these things for somebody else's legacy. I want to say that I've built something myself. I own this, and I'm going to live out my life doing this. And I just listen to other people, and I just, okay, well, what did you do for me? And then the experiences that I've had in life from knowing other people that have their own businesses and working with other business ventures. And then I just take from that, and I say, okay, now that I'm doing to do it for myself, well, how do I do it? Like a lot of these things that I'm doing right now,
Hmm.
the licenses and getting these different things. I didn't know that part of the business. I was always working for somebody else, and they had all these licenses and stuff, and I didn't really know, what they were doing, how they was doing it. I was just
Right.
working for them. So then I told myself, I said, I want to do my own business, and then that's when I found out all the DBAs and the the what was corporation, the LLC, and so I was never asking those questions for anybody. So now I'm the person who's asking the questions. I'm like what do I need? I mean, I'm
Right.
tired of letting somebody else do the lead work in a sense, and saying,
Mhm.
okay, how can I be the leader now? I did enough background work. I did enough laboring. So
Mhm.
how can I be the brain of the operation? So so basically, yeah, YouTube University.
That's great. That's
I,
great.
I went to school a couple of times too. I got some degrees and stuff like that. But at the same time, is those degrees only are specific to the books that they're in.
Right.
They're not always technology advanced. They're not always like you were saying about the AI. I mean, when I got my degree, it was years ago. I mean, so now they're doing all this AI stuff. Now they're doing all this, doing all these different things where you can talk to I can talk to my computer and like we'll have a conversation. Well, I'm looking for this, and the computer responds. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, they wasn't doing that back then. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
so
Right.
it's just a matter of keeping up with the times. Knowing the laws of the business that you're trying to get into. What I
Right.
mean, knowing what is needed, and knowing if you need legal representation or not. And I just take it by stride. What I mean, I'm still building my business because I still don't know everything there is to know. Like, what I mean, you're
Mhm.
well versed. You have years of experience. I have years of experience, but I was on the other side as an employee. Now
Right.
now I'm being the owner, so that's different. There's a difference there. So what I mean, I'm just taking it in stride, and
Well,
I'm
that's what we all
glad to
have to
be
do.
a witness of
That's
this.
Yes.
Mhm.
that's what we
Yes.
all have to do. Well, go ahead, Mr. Aubrey, on your
Well,
explanation
well,
there.
I have to tell you that when I look and I'm not sure where everybody is in age, and that's not I'm gonna not gonna ask that question, but I will say this to you, is that there's three different levels of generation between the three of us.
Hmm.
Um, Next month I'm gonna be 71 years old, right? So
71.
I get most of my research is just what you said. I have connection with people all over the world who do or have done some components of what I do. And I will never say I know it all, no matter how many years I've been in retail. When you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. And in today's world, I have friends at the New York Times that are retail business reporters, friends at the Washington Post, friends at the International Council of Shopping Centers, who I also did consulting for several years. And I also have just lay people in the business, like grew up in the business like I did as myself. But my biggest source today is, believe it or not, LinkedIn and YouTube are my biggest sources of information in terms of the retail sector. And one of the other ones is the National Retail Federation, which is probably 60,000 members and member companies around the world. And they do a lot of research on retail and even being private business entrepreneurs, such as both of you guys owning your own business. I think that's another area I will certainly share with you guys that you can start looking and find out where the industry is trending, what's the focus for 2030 in retail. So yeah, and another area I absolutely love is TED Talks that relate to
TED
business.
Talks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of those. I've seen a couple of those. I watched a couple of those before. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, those are
TED
great.
Talks.
Yeah.
Hmm. Can you highlight any emerging technologies? I know you talked about AI, but are there any in inventions that are shaping the landscape with other entrepreneurs that you are in business with?
Well, I think one, I'm not in the core part of the apparel part of the industry any longer. I'm looking more from a corporate perspective, and but I think one of the things that will support AI. Well, let me back up a little bit. AI is critical. Number one, because we don't fully understand yet as retailers the breadth of development that AI can create. We have a great idea, but there's no regulations behind AI right now. So that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a blessing and a little bit of a curse at the same time. I think one of the biggest things that retailers are focusing on now is also around um, speed to market. And that's an old term. And Keith, I'm sure you've heard that many years ago. Speed to market is how fast you can get product from point A to point B.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's always critical. And then how can you increase manufacturing at a faster pace? And how can you get goods from, let's say, Sri Lanka back to the US on a timely basis? But the things that are affecting retail on one end in terms of technology is positive, but on the other thing, some of the basic fundamentals that's having a negative impact on retail is our ability to get goods in. Look at what happened during COVID in terms of getting goods, so ships back to the US, getting them through the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal. And right now, when there's war, like we're facing now, that is going to be a major challenge for retail for some years to come. But I think technology, I think the one other, you didn't ask me this question, but I think it's something that retail has to look at with more in-depthness is retail crime is a huge issue across the globe. And if the industry doesn't figure out a way to get their hands around it, it is going to cost retail billions and billions and billions of dollars, which it's already costing them now. And I think that's a huge opportunity for retail going forward.
Wow,
Do you mean as the fabrics are being stolen, or the designs, or how is it being impacted? What do you mean by stealing
Yeah,
the
sure.
crime of the crime of the apparel?
Well, this is what I'm going to call is organized retail crime. So when you see in Los Angeles, San Diego, Atlanta, New York, all over the country, even in smaller markets, when you see 20 people going in the store and just basically ravaging the store, that's called organized retail crime because they're
Okay.
stealing the product. There's a major crime family or group behind it, and then all that merchandise is fenced out to other retailers in other countries, and you can't control it. I know that Mayor Karen Bass in Los Angeles put together a task force for the city of Los Angeles just to focus on that. So when you think of that, you guys have heard the stories. You've seen it on TV, how many people, 30, 40, 50 people go in at a time and just hit a store. They did it to Tiffany's. They did it to Macy's. They've done it to Ralph Lauren, every major retailer in the country. And that's costing the industry a tremendous amount of money
well,
because it's lost.
that is one of the things that, like, again, we're talking about our youth, right? They need to understand the effects of what they're doing there and how those things impact not only the price, the people that are owning of these
Mhm.
business, and all of that. So, I know that we did not get to a lot of the questions that maybe we've had for you here on KF&JF podcast, but I do want to make sure that we extend the thank you to you. But I'd like to ask you this: what are some of the key takeaways or insight that you can give to our listeners from this
Well,
conversation?
I think one of the things is continue to research and learn the financial part of how business works. If you're a business owner, whether you're a small, medium, or large business owner, it's not enough to have great product. It is not enough to have great marketing. It is not enough to have a great location, which we know is everything in this business, whether you're brick and mortar or online. The most important thing is you want to be successful. You are going to have failures, and that's okay. But what I will tell you is that you have to understand how the financial aspects of it work. You want to be profitable, but you want to be reasonable, meaning that you don't want to outprice yourself and you don't want to underprice yourself. So you got to find a place that is applicable for your customer base. You have to know your customer. You have to understand their trends, how they buy, what's important for them. You have to understand the seasonality of business. That's really important, like when to buy what, when. And one thing from a business perspective, I always love to share is the greatest depressant on profit is markdowns. So you are going to mark merchandise down no matter what type of merchandise you have, but you want to be able to know how to place the product, shift it, change it, move it, edit it. If I went into an apparel retailer on Monday, March 1st, and I came back 2 weeks later, and that same product was set on that same fixture, then that tells me that that's a business owner that doesn't understand the importance of shifting and moving product and showing customers newness every single week. That's very important, especially in the apparel business. So I would say the biggest takeaway that I would like to leave everybody with is create great product, design great product, hire great people. That is two things: know how finance works and hire great people. That's the key to success right there.
I definitely can't thank you enough here at KF&JF Podcast for you coming on. Um, I can't express my sincere gratitude for that, man. This is one thing that I was looking forward to all week, and wanting to make sure that we try to give you the best of us, even though we're still learning how to do what we're doing. But is there any final thoughts from you, Razak, as far as questions you might want to ask Mr. Aubrey?
Well, first of all, I
Well,
want to,
okay.
yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to be on. Um, I tell people when people call me and ask me questions about whatever components of retail they want to ask, I always say to people, look, I don't have all the answers, but I will do my best to get you the answer. And if not, I'll put you in contact with someone that perhaps could help you. And I think that we are all came from the same DNA. And I think it's really important that we stop this crab in the barrels concept that we have in the world, and think about, if I benefit, somebody else benefits and the next person benefits. And I think the other part of it is, um, from a family structure perspective, your personal families, and Keith, I know you guys have already started this, is legacy, is create a legacy for your kids, for your family members, for your friends, so that you can continue this process. African American people, great example. Um, African American women are the biggest purchasers of beauty products in the United States. They may not have the highest household income, but if African American women didn't shop beauty, that could be fragrance, makeup, all of the other components of that, the beauty industry would fall flat on its face. So we do have power, and that's not taking anything away from other cultures, but in terms of that category, we own it. So that is why there are so many people in the beauty industry, because it is a, you know, a $1 trillion business. And so I would say believe in what you believe in, and find the resources to help you get there. Thank you.
Okay.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
the most powerful thing, because we do know that the African American community has the power, because we spend a lot of money in certain areas, everything from the clothes. And if we just can get ourselves together and
Right.
realize that we're the ones providing wealth to everybody else, and we need to
Yes.
start shopping within. And this is a part of what this podcast is about. Part of what
Right.
we're doing as far as going to, you know, other communities to uplift the Black
Right.
business owners, because we need to start to show that we have power. We need to start spending it inside. So
Yes,
I
we do.
really can't thank you enough for coming on, Mr. Aubrey, and look forward to talking to you again and having some other dialogues on other subjects. And it's just been a blessing.
But thank you guys. I feel like I walked away with more than I came with, and I want to wish you both great continual success. So thanks again, and have an awesome evening. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.